Hello, and welcome back to Seajay Creates. I'm CJ, and I create stuff. I'm really excited to show off some new Gigantamax Pokemon, and even a new Mythical Pokemon today. That extra week break really gave me the juice I needed to come up with some awesome new ideas, so let's dive in. A quick recap for those of you who may not be familiar, I'm making my own Fakemon region called the Wentano Region. It's based on California to Utah, Arizona, Nevada, kind of that area of the United States, and we've unveiled some pretty amazing Gigantamax Pokemon already. If you haven't seen them, go check my other videos out. In case you haven't seen those videos, or even if you have, a quick refresher. There's a lot of lore built into the Gigantamaxing that's taking place in the Wentano region. It's not about Eternatus, but rather two diverging legendaries that put their energies into their allies. Because of this, you get two new types of Gigantamax, though they're identical to the original concept in practice. The first kind, the kind you'll find in Pokémon Amber, is called Heromaxing, and Pokemon who grow in size due to the power of unity from the Pokémon Amber box legendary, Heromax rather than Gigantamax. That's what's happening in the case of our good friend Galvantula. Just like it has in the past with other Pokemon you might know like Heracross and Golisopod. Interestingly enough, these Pokemon all drop their bug typing and gain the steel typing as their bodies are transformed. Their exoskeletons become hardened steel and their bodies mechanical. That's because one of the key factors for my Pokemon region is its Super Sentai, or Power Ranger, inspirations. In Pokemon Amber, you'll encounter new friends along the way, who will be entrusted with ancient artifacts that empower them and their Pokemon. Their friendship and their unity is what will allow you to defeat the chaos that has engulfed Wentano. I hesitate to share more than that, but I think it would be fun to answer some questions. In the comments below, you should let me know what you want to know about Wentano, its lore and legendaries, and the Power Ranger type heroes you'll encounter along the way. Speaking more to the design aspect of this Pokemon, these are in theory easy to draw. It's as simple as drawing the original Pokemon, but boxier. That being said, I don't find that particularly interesting, so I've tried to go beyond making these into robotic bug Pokemon. The interesting thing about Super Sentai Zords, which is what these are supposed to be, is that they typically have a signature weapon. You may or may not know this, but Galvantula's signature move is Electro Web, which was created for it back in Generation 5. Using that as inspiration, I've transformed the three stripes that line Galvantula's thorax into web launchers, or cannons. I've drawn only the top cannon extended, but I imagine that the other stripes on the sides can open up as well when you need to pack some extra punch. The other thing that gets tricky when designing these is how they fit into the bigger picture. If you haven't made this guess already, there will be what we commonly call a Megazord at the end of this rainbow. This plays heavily into Pokemon Amber's themes of unity, as it's common for Power Rangers to have to be of one heart and one mind for their Megazord to operate and for them to save the day. So when designing these, I also have to keep in mind what they will look like as part of that bigger picture. I'm curious if any of you can guess what part of the Megazord's body this Galvantula is going to become at the end of the story. Let me know what you think. I'm curious if you can guess maybe Golisopod and Heracross as well. If you haven't seen those videos, don't sweat it. For now, meet Heromax Galvantula, the Ellis Spider Pokemon. Heromax Galvantula is an expert at trapping and subduing the foes of peace. Its spiked feet allow it to root itself into the ground, while its three web cannons ensnare and electrocute Galvantula's opponents. It has answered the call of an ancient Pokemon to defend the land of Wentano from a great evil who would seek to drown it in chaos. Now let's talk about what's going to happen on the opposite side of the spectrum. In Pokémon Granite, you'll be fighting against a great evil who's trying to pull all of Wentano into its hive mind. The fight for individuality is what leads an ancient legendary Pokémon to lend its strength to Pokémon and people who possess strong wills and individual thought. Rather than Gigantamaxing, these Pokémon will Furymax. That's what's happening to Hydreigon here. Also, a quick aside, I try to run through the lore recaps as quickly as I can while keeping them interesting, but let me know if they're getting too repetitive. You should also let me know what questions you might have about Pokemon Granite compared to Pokemon Amber. The stories are going to be mirror images of each other, but that has bigger implications than you might expect. Hydreigon comes from a long lineage of Hydreigon that have stood alongside the box legendary of Pokemon Granite, knowing that one day it may be called on once more should a great evil be unsealed. This Pokemon has been training and preparing for this day. Now empowered by the fury of a legendary Pokemon, it grows in size, its fur thickening, and an extra head sprouting from its much longer tail. This design was fairly tricky, because even though this Pokemon is the original Hydra Pokemon, Hydrapple's very fresh in the Pokemon community's mind. My initial thought for this Pokemon was that it should get a ton more heads, like a total of 7 or so. The more I dwelt on this concept, though, it felt too much like a deviation from what Hydreigon is. You see, this Pokemon very intentionally has one main head, with 2 subheads on each arm. At least the base version does. The Pokedex entries that reference these things say that they don't even have brains. That is, the heads on the arms. So while more heads would be fun, I felt like that would be distracting. Instead, I decided to look for other ways to beef up this Pokemon when it Furymaxes. Part of this is taking the dense fur that covers its body and making it denser. While base Hydreigon does have some tufts and things like that, Furymax Hydreigon shows the detailing in its fur at every point, including the purple manes that now flow off of each of the original 3 heads. You'll notice one primary difference between the drawing you're seeing me do here and the final product. It's the wings. There's a good reason for this, though. After I finished this drawing late one night, I came back to it the next day and realized it hadn't fully encapsulated my vision. You see, my intentions was that this new version was to appear to be the king among dragons. These Furymax Pokemon are supposed to be kaiju or Power Ranger villains, but this just didn't quite have the majesty that I wanted it to. I looked at it and realized my problem. I had made the wings into giant tufts of fur, but they just weren't big enough. Proportionately, these were actually smaller than base Hydreigon's wings, and that just was not cutting it. Meet Furymax Hydreigon, the brutal Pokemon. Hydreigon's natural tendency towards anger seems to have made it the perfect conduit for the fury of an ancient legendary Pokemon. The heads that sprout from its arms and tail do not have brains, but their mouths do connect to the main body of the Pokemon. When all 4 fire attacks together, they're capable of destroying entire cities in a single breath. The raw destructive capabilities of this Pokemon appear to be unmatched even by other Furymax Pokemon, with one exception, though it comes from a legendary origin. Now, let's talk mythical Pokemon. Mythical Pokemon are interesting because they're not legendary Pokemon, but they are Pokemon of legend, and they behave essentially like legendary Pokemon just without the stats. They're basically like if you created a legendary Pokemon that was basically just good for narrative story. Now, there's some exceptions to that, of course, but for a long time, these were Pokemon like Celebi, Jirachi, things that weren't as aggressive, whereas now you have Zoroark and Zarude. These are Pokemon that are much less fairy-like, but are still of mythical origin, which is okay, and that's actually what I'm going to try and emulate in creating my mythical Pokemon. You see, I want to make a Pokemon that it looks cool, don't get me wrong, but the base form of it should really not be overly spectacular. I don't want that to be what makes it so special. Instead, it's going to have 2 forms, and that's going to take a lot of drawing and a lot of explaining, so I'm mostly just going to lord dump for this speed draw specifically, and we can talk more about the design elements as we go along. First of all, this Pokemon is lonely. I mean, he's not alone, but he is the last of his kind. Importantly, this has led him to become somewhat of a guardian of sorts for other Pokemon, especially more fragile Pokemon. You'll see why this becomes relevant later down the line, but for now, I want you to think of this Pokemon as a frog who has lost his clan. He is functionally immortal, right? He's not going to go anywhere. That's kind of one of the things of mythical Pokemon. Not all of them, some of them, but he is. And his main focus is just helping weaker Pokemon. He's a hero of types. When you look at this Pokemon, you'll notice that he's got steel gloves and footies, little booties on his feet. Those lean into his primary typing of steel, and he's got a secondary typing of water. So he's a water-steel type mythical Pokemon, and his focus is going to be running around Wentano, helping Pokemon that he believes to be in danger of any kind. He's not quite a superhero, but he's definitely a protector of weak, small, and little Pokemon, if that makes any sense. Meet Rebello, the defender Pokemon. Rebello is a bit of a tall tale among Wentano people. It's heavily disputed as to if the Pokemon even exists in any capacity, as it has not been reported to have been seen for some time now. That being said, for many ancient tradition following peoples, this Pokemon is believed to be a protector of the small and weak, a Pokemon that seeks out individuals in need of help because of a strong sense of honor and a strong heart to accompany that. Now, you might be expecting to see Rebello's second form next, and you're not going to. Not yet, at least, because that form has one more component that really matters to his story. This is a little Pokemon that you're going to need to get familiar with if you want access to Rebello's swarm form. This is a much smaller Pokemon that, for whatever reason, over time has lost the ability to evolve. Think of it as like an axolotl. They're like salamanders that, for whatever reason, over the centuries, have retained their gills and can no longer leave the water for extended periods of time like other salamanders and osmosis skin-breathing amphibians can. This small Pokemon is essentially water-bound, and Rebello has made its life mission for some time now, protecting these Pokemon and searching for a way to help them regain their evolution. Now, I think it would be interesting to conceptualize a side quest story within Pokemon Granite and Amber, where you can access this Pokemon, access maybe what went wrong, why they aren't evolving anymore, and alongside Rebello, seek out those answers and maybe find a solution. I haven't come up with that yet. Either way, the basis of this Pokemon, like I said, is something small and weak that Rebello can protect. And this Pokemon is interesting. It's going to be just a mono water type because it's lost those evolutionary capabilities. But it makes you wonder, what could it have been? What would it have looked like? In fact, I might leave this one open to interpretation. If you have a good design for this Pokemon, submit it in our Discord or send it to me on Instagram. However you want to get it to me, if you think you know what this Pokemon can look like, let me know. For now, meet Belluplet, the stagnant water Pokemon. Belluplet are found plentifully among the Wentano region's swampy and wetter regions, though they are a water-bound Pokemon. For whatever reason, they seem to have lost the ability to evolve some 50 years ago, and no records truly indicate what that evolution may have looked like. Regardless, by some miracle, their populations have survived and continued to reproduce despite the inability to evolve further. Now we're going to get into the second form, and I'm sorry for keeping you waiting, but all of this build-up really does matter. Here's what I want to create. I really do love Wishy-Washy. I think it's adorable. I think the swarm form mechanic is cool. I know not everyone likes it. That's okay. I think there's a little bit of room to do something interesting with this pre-existing mechanic. For my mythical Pokemon, I want to create a Pokemon that has the swarm form, but it's earned, right? Right when you catch Rebello, if you choose to do that side quest mission type thing, you're not going to have access to this swarm form from the get-go. I think it makes sense that for this mythical Pokemon, you can be able to earn this extra stronger form. Now, that being said, I think it still functions the same as Wishy-Washy's swarm form does. It just packs a bigger punch because of the extra work that you put into it as a Pokemon trainer. The mission that I have in mind is I want you to save some number of Belluplet from our evil team. Depending on which game you are in, it could be Team Hive, or it could be the Dark Fury Ranger if you're in Pokemon Granite. There's not really going to be an evil team there, so figure that out, whatever that means to you guys. I have it all worked out in my head, I promise. Either way, you save a bunch of Belluplet from that evil team, and that's how you can unlock this form. It's not an item, it's not anything like that. Because I don't want it to take up those slots. I don't want it to take up your ability slot even. So you perform the mission, Rebello just kind of gains this. But you have to save all of the Belluplet. And then they, as a show of gratitude, will give this form to you, essentially. They'll unlock this for your Rebello. Now, is that practical? Is it anything that's been done before? No, and probably no. I don't know. But narratively, I really like what it does for my region. I've stated this before, the themes are unity and individuality, and the importance of the balance of both. I think there's a huge strength in community, just like this swarm form. But at the same time, it takes the strength of an individual to really make that happen. And I think discarding someone because they are different or don't think the same way as we do is counterproductive to the kind of place, or at least society, that I want to live in. And so this Pokemon, as my mythical Pokemon, embodies those themes. It's both an individual and unified with its community. That doesn't mean that it's got groupthink or it's in some kind of hive mind, but they have a common goal and they work together towards it. The Belluplet do this alongside Rebello and make it much stronger than it ever was in their quest to find the source of their evolution. Meet Rebello Swarm Form. Rebello has gained the gratitude of many Belluplet through its journeys across Wentano. As a showing of gratitude, Belluplet have granted a swarm form to Rebello, making it much stronger and able to do more good for the region itself. This also includes unlocking the fighting type alongside Rebello's existing water type, helping it to deliver stronger, more physical blows to opponents who may try to do harm to the other weak Pokemon living in the Wentano region. And there you have it. You have technically only 2 new Pokemon, but 3 new Pokemon forms on top of that. So really 5 Pokemon if you like to do math like I like to do math. Either way, let me know what you think. And don't forget to leave me your questions or proposals for Belluplet's evolution or whatever you want to do with it. Let me know. Thank you. And I can't wait to see what you guys create next.